DaChop podcast. We discuss it all. If the fellas at the shop will go in on it, we will. Let's chop it up.
We back. Hope everyone's having a good Sunday, or when, this might be Wednesday, here's the show, but we do live recordings every Sunday at 3 p.m. So tune in for the live recording. But we have Questboogie in the building, Step the Dark Child, and our guest actually has the topic today. Which one to talk about today? Questboogie?
All right, we're going to talk about the destruction of the Black community, the Black man and the foundation of the Black community and Black family. So, we were talking together, and this is something I'm extremely passionate about. Just talking to some friends or colleagues or associates of mine, the topic came up. They're from different backgrounds, Caucasian or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, they start bringing up the fact of the statistics that you hear that are tossed around about Black folks, right? They're prone to violence or criminals, or they make up Black on Black crime, or they make up this percentage of crime, so on and so forth. And I had to break it down to him and educate him because he didn't know. Obviously, he doesn't have these type of people that have these type of conversations. All the people he tends to hang out with have those other conversations that we hear about in that other community. But ultimately, I had to break it down to him. From slavery, they gave us our freedom, but they didn't really give us our freedom, right?
Right.
So Jim Crow laws and things like that. Now, you had Black people and Black families come together and start building their own schools, building their own businesses, building up their own communities. You hear stories about Black Wall Street, which was burned to the ground. Mm-hmm. Because of a story about a woman in an elevator. They burned a whole Black community to the ground. It wasn't because of that situation. It was probably false, because we know based on history, a lot of it is false.
Right.
Example, Emmett Till, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were jealous of the wealth that Black people were accumulating amongst themselves, especially poor white folks, right? Mm-hmm. But even wealthier white folks did not want to see what they considered inferior people having the same power or more power than them. Mm-hmm. So they found an excuse to destroy our community. It happened in Roseville in Florida, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of other towns and exactly.
Let's throw out a couple. Atlanta, 1906, Atlanta race riots. Lake Lanier is on top of a city called Oscarville. Mm-hmm. They just flooded the whole town and made a reservoir. It's funny how hundreds of people die. Dozens of people die in Lake Lanier every year.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a word.
I just want to.
No words. Yeah. So it's tons of examples, right? Tons. So then, you got Jim Crow laws, which were created to disenfranchise our people and really to keep us in bondage, technically, right? Made it difficult for us to vote, okay? To really be able to change our own lives, okay? And then as time progresses, we have the civil rights movement. We start, things start progressing very, very slowly. But every time we take a step forward, they kick us back 3 steps, okay? Fast forward up into my lifetime in the 80s. Now you got to think about this, right? No Black folks that I knew, no Black folks that my parents knew or my grandparents knew had the wealth or the resources to bring in crack cocaine or bring in cocaine from out of this country. It was brought in by white folks. It was brought in by the federal government, okay, to really fund a war, okay? Now, where did they push that? In the Black communities that were already, impoverished, right? Now, it's destroying our Black people, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what are they doing? If you're caught with any crack or using any crack or anything associated with crack, they're locking you up and they're giving you 30-year minimums, 40-year minimum sentences, right? This started with Ronald Reagan. Mandatory minimums, dare say no to drugs, but they threw us in prison. People that were on drugs were sick. They needed help, but they threw them in prison. You got folks that are still in prison from the 80s from some of these drug offenses, some of them minor. Now you could have the same amount of crack, which is made of cocaine, as you do cocaine, which was actually the white folks' drug, and they would get probation, meaning the white people would get probation. They would send the Black people to 30 or 40 years in prison, okay? Mandatory minimums and stuff like that. So what they were doing is this was happening because we didn't have Black folks, Black families didn't have a lot of jobs, right? We didn't have a lot of resources. They made it very difficult. So you got, those elements to start going to drug dealing, okay, as a way to make money and make a living.
Mhm.
Now, you can argue whether it was wrong or right. Some people argue, they had to make a living, whatever the case may be. Survival. I'm not saying it's wrong or I agree with it. What I'm saying is the prison sentences and the things that happened to them were disproportionate to the crime.
Unfair.
Right? So you're busing and getting rid of all the black fathers in the communities, locking them up. And it wasn't just drugs. Prior to this, they're arresting us for murders that we didn't commit and convicting us. No black people on the jury, convicting our black men, sending them to prison for crimes they didn't commit. They're being sentenced to death. Some of them, if they're lucky, they get out and we find out that they weren't guilty.
Hold on. To also add to what he was saying, when they go to court, right, and the jury is all white.
Some being judged by a group of your peers.
Right.
And but defender that.
Right, but I want to say this. Well, how come your people didn't go and be? Well, mind you, during that 300 year, 40 years during slavery, if you was caught reading and learn how to read all that stuff, you were killed. You understand that? So by the time they let us free from slavery, we had to start from ground zero of our own education. But guess what? You have 340 years plus of knowledge and experience to be those judges, to be the lawyers, to be the cops, to be everyone in control and power.
400-year head start.
Mm-hmm.
So when the people go to jail for that 1 ounce of crack, whatever, and they get sentenced for 30, 40 years, because the system was not fair.
It wasn't designed for us.
Continue what you're saying. I wanted to make that very clear. People say, well, why don't I go to school and do this?
So the system wasn't designed for us, right? And as we made progress, we were always taken back. But now in the 80s, I'm passionate about this because in the 80s, so many fathers were taken from the community and sent to prison, right? Now think about it this way. Then you got kids that are having kids because the mothers are left with these kids that are being raised by single mothers that got to work 2-3 jobs. So these kids are raising themselves, right? And they're susceptible to a lot of the bad things that happen in impoverished areas, whether it be a white impoverished area, a black one or Hispanic one, okay? Or an Asian. End of the day, you got fathers that are gone. When they come home, if they come home, right? If they come home,
Let me
go ahead and jump in by all means.
I want to add a little color to that part because
No pun intended.
Yeah, because it's important to understand that with welfare was created for white people, but when they offered it to black people, because of poverty, black women chose the government over black men. So that's why there was no fathers in the house in the 80s, because in the 70s, black women had to choose between being dirt poor or having a roof over their head. But you can't have a man and a roof over your head. And black women made that choice. Not saying they're right. This is just what happened.
Right.
So when you get to the 80s, there are no fathers. Some of them in jail, some of them hustling or whatever. But the family breakdown already has started because of that decision in the 60s and 70s.
Right. And what he's saying, to pick up what he's saying, so all those fathers that was in jail during the 80s who had kids, that dad wasn't there, the little girls, the little boys saw that mom was the head of the house doing everything, right? Mm-hmm. So because them kids didn't have their parents growing up, now they're our ages because they're born in the 80s. Now they're in the 20s, late 20s and 30s, seeing that, well, I don't need a man to survive. I see my mom do it, right?
Exactly.
Women.
The cycle has started, and we're trying to pull that cycle back, but y'all understand the concept. Everybody want to say, yes, there is some men out there who don't do what they're supposed to do, correct, but it's not absolute. Just like there's women out there who don't do their job, but it's not absolute. But majority of the time, women, y'all take advantage of that legal system. Y'all kick the man out and get paid. Y'all know if you kick a man out and get rid of him, it's a win for you. You get a paycheck from him or a paycheck from the system. You're winning.
It's short-sighted.
Continue.
In addition to that, you got the young men and the boys that grew up, and a woman can't teach a man how to be a man.
Facts.
Not to say that in some cases in a single family home, men don't grow up and they make it or they turn into, good men or whatever. They picked it up somewhere, but in a lot of cases, for the most part, a woman can't truly teach a man how to be a man. And because a man hasn't been taught how to be a man, when he comes and he dates your daughter, he doesn't know. He doesn't know. Okay, so he's learning this from the elements in the community, the bad elements, or he's picking it up from what he sees in TV and BET or MTV and the videos.
TikToks and social media.
Whatever the case may be. So he's he doesn't know what it's like to be a man. Okay, so he's running and impregnated all these women and leaving, and then it's another hit. Again, the cycle goes on and on. more kids without fathers.
Let
Go ahead.
me say, I want to say something. Something that I did growing up. Before I could talk to a woman or get to really go on a date with a girl, I had to go in the house and get to meet mom and dad. I had to meet the parents before I can take the girl out on a date. That doesn't change. Now, I'm not saying ask for a hand in marriage. I'm asking you, hey, hi, I'm Dwayne. We're gonna go to the movie. We're gonna go to Lowe's and get something to eat, and I'll have her back around 10 o'clock. Whatever time I was allowed to have her back. I was told she needed to be back at this time, and that's how I navigate.
He said Lowe's.
Oh, AMC movie theaters. Sorry, I'm from Pittsburgh. We had a place called Lowe's. Anyway, movie theater called AMC. But the point I'm trying to make is that we went away from that. Now girls just go out whatever they want with dilly, and like what Questboogie was saying, men don't know how to treat women. That's why I heard doing X, Y, Z.
Well, continue to bring that because where you at right now, you jumped about a decade.
No, I'm sorry, my bad.
Keep going, Chris.
But hold on, one last thing, because he says for your women who listen to the show right now, and you might be in your feelings when he said women can't raise a man. If he's wrong, here's a challenge: give your son a tie, tell him to tie it. If you can't do it, okay, you're doing an okay job. If you can't do it, you fell him. And when I say a tie, I'm talking about a tie go around his neck. Continue.
Not a clip on.
Not clip on.
So, in other words, Black men are not in the communities, right? Without the Black man, which is the foundation, the community is going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to talk to my buddy. His name is Josh. Okay, I had to explain to him because of that. People say, well, you have all of the opportunities that we have. How come you have not reached this level yet, or how come you have not achieved this level? Okay, and I had to explain to him because you all have a 300 or 400 year head start. When you went to school, your parents had money because they were able to buy houses. They had equity, which is, helps them build wealth, right? So they have these things that we don't have. We have families that couldn't afford houses or didn't have houses,
could not buy
houses because they wouldn't allow us to buy houses in certain communities for a long time.
Great line.
So, I mean, end of the day, I grew up a little different. I was fortunate enough to have my father in my life, right? Now, before I had my father in my life, I was with my mother. And that side of my family had a different element to it, the element you don't want to grow up around. Mm-hmm. And I knew as a kid, I looked up to a lot of those cousins and things. And if I had grown up in that atmosphere, I would have been something else. I probably would have been in prison. I would have had a bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. God knows what would have happened. Probably, maybe dead. When my father came into my life and raised me, he taught me how to be a man. He taught me responsibility and everything that I needed to know to be successful. Taught me right from wrong, how to accept accountability. It wasn't easy.
Because we talked about earlier.
But the reason I respect my father, okay, is because he didn't have to come get me. I was going to be a ward of the state. So he didn't have to come get me. Some fathers would have said, no, I mean, it is what it is. Because my mother told him I wasn't his, and she knew I was. So he didn't have to. He was dating a woman at the time that said, we're going to go have our own family, leave him where he is. But as a man, he did the right thing and came and took me in and taught me. When I came, I was 8. I didn't know how to eat properly with a spoon or a fork, or how to hold a spoon or a fork. Okay? Now, he taught me the things I needed. He taught me how to be a man. He taught me how to treat women. He taught me how to be an independent thinker. And not to toot my own horn, but I grew up as a decent man. Okay. I avoided a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of brothers in our community fall into, whether it be the drugs or women or things of that nature. Okay. I can tell you, I don't have nothing against people that smoke weed, right? In some places it's becoming legal, whatever. Me personally, it's not my thing. But he taught me at an early age that habit, they use that habit. Now they may let white kids off with warnings and little minor things or probation, with us, they use that as a gateway to lock us up and take our freedom and give us felonies. When you have a felony and you come out of jail, it's very difficult to get a job or to make a living, even if you can get a job, but make a decent enough living. So what happens is a lot of brothers go back to crime or doing things of criminal. You go in jail, you don't come out, you probably come out a better criminal. You know what I mean? So it's a way to... Wait,
in the 80s, they used to actually come out better people.
That was the 80s. Now the prisons are about...
They could take classes.
When you think about it,
Oh, that's going.
Prisons, right? Prisons, a lot of people don't realize it. Prisons make money. They generate money. They use prison labor, which is another form of slavery. So what do? Bust all the black people into prison on trumped up charges, fake charges, and it becomes free labor because you don't belong here. You belong to the state or the government. And a lot of companies actually pay prisons for prison labor. All it is a different form of slavery. Okay. So my point being, and I'll get off my soapbox because I know I'm talking too much, but
you running? You
pretty much, they use these different avenues and different things. Even if you listen to politics now, a lot of us don't listen to politics because they think, we can't change anything or my vote doesn't change this. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. They use these laws and they seem minuscule until you dig into them. But what they do is they use these laws to disenfranchise us and take our rights. Okay. And what's happening is enough of our brothers and sisters, are just trying to make it, right? And we're not getting involved as much as we should in the politics. So the people making all the decisions are those other people that hate us or want to use us, and we're letting them do it. In other words, okay, we're not wise enough. We don't have enough knowledge. We're ignorant to the true workings of the world. Even speaking to my brother, his grandmother was a mayor for years, and the things that she went to vote and to become mayor, and
back in her time,
right? If she's 99 today, still alive, if she heard him say these foolish things,
break her heart.
It would break her heart. He wouldn't vote and said he's not voting because either one of the candidates he doesn't like, and his vote's not going to count anyway. Think about this: if this election here in Georgia, the two senators that won this last election, Ossoff and what was the other one, Warnock, won slightly. Okay, slightly. Okay. If millions of young black men or black folks in general feel that way, those numbers can sway a race. Okay.
Easily.
Now think about it this way: they're now, if it wasn't important and our votes didn't count, why are they changing all these laws to take away and make it more difficult for us to vote? They're trying to draw the lines of districts and stuff like this to benefit them. They're trying to sway everything to benefit them. Okay. End of the day, and this can spiral into a lot of different areas. Ultimately, the point being, I explained this all to Josh, right? And it gave him a little better outlook on really what's happening. And why, because, for some white folks, they're full of hate, right? Others are ignorant as hell. They might mean well.
They don't know.
But they're ignorant, excuse me for cursing. They're ignorant to the fact of what really goes on in our community because they're so insulated, okay?
No, well, I call it
willful ignorance. I agree with you. Well, it doesn't,
it's all available. You have to actively avoid learning this.
But this from experience. Some people, they operate in their bubble, and if it doesn't bother them or inconvenience them, they're not concerned about it because it's not bothering them. So they don't take it upon themselves to look into it until it affects them personally, right? So, as I started breaking this down to him, he starts saying, okay, I see where you're going and I see why you feel this way. Like he asked me sometimes about some of these murders or some of the, and I call them murders with these police killings and shootings and so on and so forth. But they've been doing this forever to us. The difference is that now, before social media, if you lived in Georgia, this happened in LA somewhere, a lot of times you wouldn't hear it because the media wouldn't pick it up, right? But it has happened across the country in these small towns and these areas for eons. It's happened, it continues to happen. We're just now starting to hear about it because social media makes these things more available. You now have cameras and smartphones and things like that, so you're capturing it. But think about it, if it happened before then, the cop would write up his report, which is mostly a lie, and that's all that would get played. The black family wouldn't hear anything, wouldn't be heard at all.
I got one thing to add to that as a positive. In Colorado, they just passed a law, if you saw it. If the police officer turns off his body cam, his testimony will not be admissible.
That should be true. I mean, that should be everywhere.
Across the board, but I like
across
that.
the board.
Yeah.
Because, end of the day, they take their word. Let's keep it 100, right? this country was not designed for us. These laws were not written for us. This justice system wasn't designed for us. It's doing what it was supposed to do, which is serve them, right? We talk about fair and everything being equitable. The reality is we got to fight for everything that we get, right? Everyone was so happy about this conviction for George Floyd, right? The reality is the fact that there was still some uncertainty about whether this man would be found guilty after what we saw with our own eyes is unbelievable.
Right.
The fact that he was only given 22 years and may only have to do 15 is unfathomable, because you got folks out here that are doing 30 years for a little bit of weed or minimal stuff, like the young black brother that killed another young black man during a drug transaction of marijuana, a small amount of marijuana. This young brother killed another brother, which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
He's facing more time than this police officer.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. But nevertheless, I digress. The system itself, I mean, truly, we talk about black men, right? And since I've been on the show, we talk about black women and the relationships we have with each other. End of the day, the black men they're the foundation, whether you like it or not. If you build us up, we will all rise together. We need to build each other up and stop, because really what they do is, and my grandmother said this, my grandfather, my parents say this, every other nationality, they help each other. Okay, the white folks help the white folks, the Asians help the Asians, Hispanics help the Hispanics. In our community, we don't help each other. We don't support each other. Okay, if we see somebody else getting out, we try to pull them down. Or if you have some black folks that make it out, they want to just be the big dog. Very seldom do they ever want to reach their hand down and help pull somebody else up. We don't help each other, right? We don't help educate each other. We don't help put each other in a better position. There's a lot of willful ignorance, but go ahead. I'll let one of you guys take it.
No, I just want to add color, because I'm always on that point. I understand about the black men and women not helping. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. Prior to, I don't want to say that integration was the worst thing that happened to us, but I do at this point. I firmly believe that Martin Luther King is wrong. Okay, the movement, while it sounds good on paper, set us up for this, because basic human nature. Me and you are hunting for the same, hunting for a lion. I mean, a gazelle. I don't care. Okay, you have a spear. I have a rock. You have an advantage in that hunt.
Right.
Is it in your best interest to give me that spear?
Absolutely not.
Why? Because your survival depends on you having that spear. And unfortunately for me, it is an advantage for you, and it's a detriment to me, because I'm not going to get that gazelle with a rock.
Right.
Well, that's the same for power. That's the same for money. Right. White people see power as a gazelle. They have the numbers, they have the system, they can control the system, they can maintain power. It's not in their best interest to feed us the means to acquire that power. So it's real. I used to get mad at white supremacy. I don't know anymore. It simply is what it is. As long as we're in their country, why I wouldn't give you my wallet and say, hey man, go buy me, go take care of me and be. What you gonna do? You gonna say, I'll take care of this fool right after I pay my car note, my mortgage, and then you get the crumbs. That's what America dishes out to people of color. You get the crumbs. And the only problem is that America also takes it takes a real interest in who gets those crumbs. AKA, let's be 100%. You broke down the black family, you destroyed the black church and the black community, and you rose up athletes, movie stars, and drug dealers to literally the pinnacle of alpha maleness in the black community. The worst group. Listen, I love football, basketball, and all that, but literally for the most part, the worst group of people to be role models is who you gave the money to.
Right.
You got Cardi B as the role model for women. Who in their right mind wants Cardi B to be the role model for their daughter? Girl? Okay, but Cardi B's a millionaire. How much money Rihanna worth? I've seen Rihanna. How much money is Kim Kardashian worth? Right. You chose who you gave these crumbs to. Right. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that somebody like P. Diddy is worth more than Barack Obama, even though I got my own issues with Barack Obama. The point being is you got professors, you got activists who would actually change the community that's struggling. A few years ago, they were trying to do that Martin Luther King monument in Washington, D.C. They needed $10 million. I remember this, it was like 2002, 2003. They needed $10 million. They struggled to get $10 million. At that time, Oprah was headed towards $1 billion. Michael Jordan could have paid for that out of chump change.
Right.
But no, they were struggling to get the money to build that. I don't like Umar Johnson because I think he's a grifter, but I'm gonna go with his idea. He was trying to put together a black school and all that, right? He struggled for donations, but Bob Johnson could have paid for that out of his pocket change.
Former owner of BET.
There you go.
Yeah.
He could have paid, but he didn't. Oprah Creek is a multi-billionaire. She had her own network, but at the end of the day, did she turn her network over to be ran by the black community?
Nope.
Who she sells to? Was it Viacom?
She sold for pennies on a dollar.
Yeah,
Pennies on a dollar.
she instead of keeping that, because the white community, this is the problem with poverty, and once I do it, I'm gonna say something that's gonna be once again selfish, but black actors, Denzel, he might do a whole bunch behind the scenes, but he ain't a leader.
Right.
LeBron, I like LeBron. I like what he's trying to do, but the whole NBA ain't behind him.
Right.
LeBron,
Or us. Not me. I don't know about our people. Continue.
well, I mean,
I ain't trying to go the whole sports route, but
it's like
the hate is
Jay-Z.
real.
I love some Jay-Z. He created Tidal. We thought we were gonna have it for us. Jay-Z sold it and took the money.
Right.
Way to go, Jay-Z. Once again, selfish.
Right.
They told them, we'll give you the money,
That's what I said.
but you don't get to raise. No, but the people even they gave the crumbs to, you don't get to raise up your own people. If you do something, at the end of the day, you got to give it back to us. And these people who they gave the crumbs to are listening. And if we don't follow the rules, if we try to actually
Bill
step out,
Cosby.
he was exactly what I was about to say.
About the Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby. Everybody want to say Bill Cosby raped these women. I'm not even going to get into the mentality of how wrong that was. Rape. I'm not even going to get into the mentality of how wrong that was. I'm going to make sure that y'all understand. Every time Bill Cosby has had a hiccup in his life, he was trying to advance the black community. Yeah. Right? When his illegitimate daughter popped up two decades ago, he was trying to buy a TV station. They shot him down. This time he was trying to buy NBC. He was on the verge of being able to get the funding to buy NBC, a national broadcast. All of a sudden, 60 women from the 60s came up and said he was raping them.
Right.
2 years in prison.
They sent him to prison on a shaky case. That case was so shaky and fluky. I'm like, convicted him.
He did 2 years in prison. Yeah. He out right now. He can still get his money back, but his ability to make those kind of moves is gone.
Gone.
Okay.
The legacy.
We see this.
It's the story of legacy. That's what I wanted to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is now I'm about to say some stuff that's controversial, but this is how I feel, because in the absence of the patriarchy, they move in a lot of black women into positions of power. You know what I'm saying? You moving a lot of black women into positions of power. Black women have proven time and time again, unfortunately for us, they can't be trusted to move in the best interest of the black community when they're in positions of power. Black Lives Matter, anybody? We're gonna put that on the table. We're gonna talk about Kamala Harris. You better do a little research. I got a negative view of her, but when it came time for her to choose to be with somebody, she didn't choose us. She chose a DA of a different complexion, and it ain't no DA of a different complexion that ever been on our side ever. You know what I'm saying? Stacey Abrams, go Stacey. But who you really work for, Stacey? Because I'm just saying, you could have been a senator instead of Warnock having to pull that weight. You could have ran and won quite easily. But now, what you trying to do? She's trying to run.
I think she's gonna run for governor again. I think
she's gonna try. And
I like her though.
Why?
So I actually had a conversation with her.
Okay.
You know, the stuff that actually happened during this election. I'll be honest with you. Flipping Georgia was her. It was her.
It was. I give it that.
It was her. You know, so I don't agree with some of her politics. I don't agree with anybody's politics totally, but overall, that's some stuff we've needed for so long, but nobody has been able to pull it off. I never thought that I would live to see the day that Georgia turned blue. I'm gonna tell you, like, I'm not big on politicians in general because I believe they flip flop and they blow whatever way the wind, blow.
I personally think white people are white people. I don't care what your political agenda is.
I'm true. I'm with you there. I like Ossoff. A young.
I like what he said.
I like what he said. I like,
Bitch.
but John Lewis. He
47 years, he didn't really do nothing either.
Yeah,
He sounded great. Though.
he sounded good, but he was marching. He was marching with King. They did some things that I think furthered us to some degree.
Yeah.
But in Washington, I will too.
3 steps back.
Yeah, but you got to look at it. When you're in Washington and they pull you in, you got Democrats and Republicans and you're black.
Yep.
It's very hard to get bills passed. You can see right now, Mitch McConnell is blocking every bill he can. Or he was. You know what I mean? Still really blocking it because of Manchin. But
ain't Manchin a Democrat.
He's only in name only. In name only. In name only.
White people is white people. Ain't nobody trying to give up power. They working together to maintain
exactly to maintain power, maintain that role, and get paid. It's really what it is. So you do have some in there, I feel like, that are trying to make change, but I think it's so few that they can't. They're limited as to what they can do, which is why they need to get rid of the filibuster. But my thing is, I feel like we need to have a more of a role in politics. Because black folks, the only time you hear them coming because they want our vote, but we need to actively take a role. There's plenty of young, intelligent brothers and sisters that can do what these folks do. These white folks in these offices, half of them. Look at that Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's an idiot.
Well, the problem is this.
She's an evil idiot.
But see, the problem is this. It's based on parenting and education because we're raising our kids. Oh, be a basketball player, football player, sports the route. No one's telling kids you need to be a lawyer. You need to be the next, government. You need police officer, chief, not police officer, but they're not. They're not being raised to go in those positions.
Well, it ain't, and
the money's good there too. If you do a little research, some positions they're in, they're getting good money. So if you worry about the money, look into those positions.
Well, no, I wanna argue because this is something I had a conversation about. I'm trying to get my mind right to have this, put it on video. It's about selfishness. Yeah, 7 minutes. It's about selfishness and greed. Because it's fine if I raise my kid to be a politician, but I raise them to be selfish. I'm gonna regret that decision. If I raise a lawyer, but he's selfish and he's only concerned about getting his bag, that's the thing, getting the bag. If he's concerned about getting the bag, more so, I'm not gonna knock Kamala Harris. She's the vice president, but as a DA, she was way more concerned about
progressing her career, advancing her career,
than what was good for the black community. It got her where she at, but I'm scared of what happens if Joe gets sick.
So and I guess if you look at it, you want to play devil's advocate. You can say, well, if they don't, if somebody's greasing somebody's hand or somebody's sacrificing to, now has she done all these things to get in a position where she can truly make a change? That has yet to be seen, right?
Exactly.
So we don't know. But I think collectively as a community, number one, there's a lot of changes that got to take place. You know what I mean? But ultimately, we got to really start strengthening our families again.
Yes.
Because you got to think about it. Even as far as politics, most black families were very conservative.
Yes.
Very conservative, right? It's just the damn Republicans are so racist that we just can't, this is outwardly racist.
If they quit calling us ends, you probably would get the
black vote.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell white people this, and I'm gonna be honest. If you stop calling us the N-word and stop making us feel stupid for supporting you, you almost got the black male vote.
Right.
You can split the black male vote, right?
Because I'm conservative in a lot of my views. And I don't think anybody fits into one or two boxes. So there's a spectrum, right? So you can go either way. That pendulum can go either way. But by and large, I was raised in church. So there's a lot of things, especially along the religious, line that I'm more conservative. Right. So, but ultimately, I think our biggest problem is the destruction of the black family. Because now with the things our children glorify is unbelievable. the music videos and the OnlyFans and the young men are glorifying these rappers and their pants hanging down and the stupid, silly stuff that comes out of their mouth on a regular basis. And, you know, it's not really furthering our community. It's really a hindrance, you know? So.
Well, I think we should put a pin in it.
We should put a pin in it. We can come back to this.
But I want to say one thing, because I let you slide the whole conversation without saying the one thing that is one of the main problems in the Black community.
What's that?
Child support.
What's that for part 2?
Yeah, that's part 2, because it ain't about the child support specifically, as in it's the fact that it by itself estranges men from women. It is nothing positive about child support. And the moment you get on child support, so many things come into play that you are frustrated and angry, and you actively don't like the person on the other side. And that lasts for 18, 20 years. That right there destroys our community.
So to touch this before we quit it. Yes. But you know what, man? I will say this, even though, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm about to know this extremely well.
Oh Lord.
Okay. So the whole child support thing and the whole divorce thing, because I'm going through it personally. But there is no way in hell, I don't care how much I hate the mother, right? And that I'll do everything I can for my son. The reason being for me is I know what could have happened to me if my dad wasn't there, right? So I'm gonna do everything I can in my power to be there for my son. Now I will say, with me only having him for the summer for 6 weeks and a week for spring break and a week or 2 for Christmas or Thanksgiving is not a lot. So the influence I can have on him is limited. However, I'm gonna try to be as impactful as I can. But at the same time, what's more than likely gonna happen is he's gonna get to an age where she can't control it, that she's gonna send it to me. And I pray that he's not old enough or too far gone that I can't still have a positive impact on his life and ensure or do my best to ensure that he turns into a good man and productive to society, and you know, to the point to where he doesn't harm himself or end up in prison or get swallowed up whole by the system as a Black man, right? So I mean, I'm not gonna let her, because that's my flesh and blood, you know what I mean, at the end of the day. So it does make it difficult, and I'm with you 1,000%. But you know, some brothers look for excuses and things like that. I'm just not one of them brothers. You know what I mean?
Well, see, the other part, and I know we got to go see
part two.
I like child support, but I just want to throw this on the table. Then you got to leave. It ain't just about him, because I respect what you're doing for your son. But the other half of that equation is you are now in an adversarial contest with her.
Absolutely.
And that right there, that's the fight. You still got to struggle, but the fight is you are in an adversarial confrontation with her. Absolutely. Too many of us are doing just that.
Exactly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is part 1. We'll see you next week for part 2. This is a great conversation. Questboogie, Steph and DaChop, thanks for tuning in for the show today.
That was great.
We out.